The L15 weekly podcast on YouTube, giving you the latest news, views, and opinions from the football world.
So, welcome back to the podcast here on YouTube. Hope you enjoyed that little message on, the first intro message I've added in, which isn't me actually talking live to you. It is a previous recording with a little bit of editing behind it, dare I say. So today it's all things Bundesliga. It's all things Bundesliga. It's Bundesliga, the German league, showing the entire football world how to do it really safely amid the coronavirus pandemic, and the Bundesliga are really showing some good stuff in the way of the world and in the way of football. So we're going to be talking all last week's fixtures, we're going to be talking all next week's fixtures, everything Bundesliga. So without further ado, let's get straight into this week's episode of the L15 weekly podcast.
The L15 weekly podcast on YouTube, giving you the latest news, views, and opinions from the football world. Join me every Friday from 5 p.m. for a brand new episode of the L15 weekly podcast.
So, since the final Bundesliga game before the coronavirus pandemic was played on the 11th of March 2020, which was Mönchengladbach 2, FC Köln 1, we've had an entire round of fixtures to have a look at and another entire round to go through for the future. So, I guess we start with the game at Augsburg. So let's go and have a look at the game at the WWK Arena. So it was a game between FC Augsburg and Wolfsburg, where Wolfsburg in the end turned out as victors. I mean, it was it's a difficult game for both teams. Augsburg struggling around the relegation zone. They're only 4 points from safety now, and things are looking very tight down the bottom indeed, with only 7 points with between 12th and 16th being the relegation qualification place, if you weren't familiar with that, as this is a podcast from England. Wolfsburg, they're probably too far away for a top 5, top 4 push, but they would love to secure a spot in the Europa League qualifiers, which they are in at the moment, and thanks to this win against Augsburg, they are flying towards that, I'll say. And that was quite high-pitched, I'm ever so sorry. But let's have a look at who performed well in this match. So, Renato Steffen opened the goal scoring for Wolfsburg after 43 minutes. And then Tin Jedvaj, who, if you weren't aware, was at the, is a Croatian player. He's fairly well known among the Croatian team. Played World Cup football last year, but he equalised after 54 minutes, and then Ginczek came on off the bench. Daniel Ginczek, the striker, came on after 61 minutes and put in a match-winning performance with a very last-minute winner against Augsburg. And let's say the Wolfsburg fans, who weren't inside the ground, were incredibly ecstatic. The possession stats do not lie. Wolfsburg dominated possession. I mean, this incredible system under Oliver Glasner is really starting to work. It's a great system. They like to keep the ball. They like to create chances. They like to play nice football, which is what you like to see, really. But Augsburg, they just fell short at the final hurdle. I mean, it's a last-minute winner. It's a heartbreaking moment for Augsburg, especially in a relegation dogfight where fine margins like that can really mean a lot. So I'm going to have a look at the man of the match for this match, and I can say the only couple of matches I'm going to be able to give you are the two that I watched, and the two that I watched were Schalke and Borussia Dortmund. And I also watched the Bayern Munich game. I mean, it's classic, a bit basic, that the fact that I'm watching the two supposed biggest teams play in Germany. But they were the most appetising games for me. But let's go and have a look at the man of the match from this Augsburg and Wolfsburg game. Kevin Mbabu, the right back for Wolfsburg, signed from FC Young Boys, is it? FC Young Boys. In last summer, but the man of the match went to him. He got an 8.6 rating, played 90 minutes, got an assist, 2 shots, 38 accurate passes, 76 of those accurate, 2 chances created, 38 accurate passes, as I've already said, won 14 duels. He is a real steal right back. He can do both jobs going forward and going back. He's an incredibly he's a model athlete, is the word I want to say. Very muscular and very, very good in defence and attack. Very powerful. So a big win there for Wolfsburg, and seeing if they can, push for the top four. I mean, it's a long shot, but Augsburg will be gutted after conceding that last minute equaliser. I mean, we're going to move on to a fairly more boring game, which went between Dusseldorf and Paderborn, where, let's say, Fortuna Dusseldorf dominated for large periods of the game, I'll say, and Paderborn, they just couldn't. Well, I suppose Fortuna Dusseldorf really couldn't break Paderborn down. I mean, Paderborn were top in almost every category. I mean, they had 54% possession, 10 total shots, 9 chances created, 2 big chances. I mean, it was a fairly big game near the bottom of the table. Dusseldorf just inside that relegation qualification place in 16th place with 23 points, and Paderborn rock bottom of the table. It was a real big clash in terms of relegation, but they just couldn't find it. They couldn't break the deadlock, really. Paderborn, the 10 points clear, 10 points away from safety, where Mainz are at the moment. This sort of game, you cannot afford to let it pass them by, and I'm sure that they will try not to let that happen again. But a fairly poor game from Paderborn's point of view, because they'd have wanted to go out there with a bit of fighting spirit. But I suppose you have to feel a little bit of sympathy with the players, as they're just getting back into football competitively, and they're trying. It might be a bit of a shock for them, the fact that they're still playing now. I mean, the season, I think, would have finished by now. But the man of the match went to Valon Barisha, the Kosovan international, I do believe. Yes, of course I'm right. 7.5 rating, 68 minutes played, came off after 68 minutes. 7.5 rating, 20 passes, 85% pass success. I think he was just the tidiest player in the team, really. I mean, Fortuna Dusseldorf dominating chances created with 9 to Paderborn's 4. And I mean, it was a deserved win, really, in the bag for Dusseldorf, but it wasn't to be. Paderborn did hold out strong, but it is the sort of game that Paderborn want to be winning, considering that they're not in any comfortable position, really. But the only place they really are comfortable is comfortable at the bottom of the table, which I'm sure is not at all where their manager Stefan Baumgart would want to be at the moment. But let's move on. Let's move on to the next game, and let's move on to RB Leipzig versus Freiburg, which finished 1-1 with RB Leipzig. I mean, Manuel Gould, I've read that completely wrong, scored the opening goal, which I did see whilst I was watching the Borussia Dortmund-Schalke game, which was from a corner with a bit of poor defending from RB Leipzig, with a bit of uncharacteristically poor defending from RB Leipzig. But RB Leipzig dominating in every field. I mean, the man of the match for Freiburg was the goalkeeper Alexander Schlovov, which was the sort of game that you'd expect from the guy in goal when Leipzig are throwing chances at you like a mad thing. But Leipzig, they've sort of fallen off in the title race, really. You thought that they might actually do the impossible and take a title away from Bayern Munich, but it sort of wasn't to be. It wasn't really the sort of thing that you'd want to see. I mean, Leipzig were very good in terms of possession in this game. They kept 67% of the ball with 22 chances created, 4 big chances, 570 accurate passes. I mean, I've said it before on this podcast. I've said that Julian Nagelsmann is an incredible football brain, and I think this sort of system he's got working at Lord. But 2 saves inside the box, 1 high claim. 29 accurate passes, 1 duel won, not really sure how that's counted, but Alexander Schlovov keeping the opposition out, and then Poulsen equalised in the 77th minute for them, who played well as well. I think Leipzig in the end were done over a bit by Freiburg, who seemed to sort of sit back and take the pressure from RB Leipzig and try and hit them on the break, and they did that well from a set piece chance, and they did manage to get the goal, which in the end Leipzig ended up chasing, and at the moment that leaves Freiburg chasing Wolfsburg for that European qualification place. I mean, there's a chance they might get it. They're only 2 points behind, But with games like that where you go 1-0 up and you're defending so resolutely and you've got so much pressure, you'd like to see if they can hold out with a good defensive system. But with Christian Streich in charge, I mean, he's managed them for quite a while now, and obviously he knows his way around his players, and he's got such a good system built up there, and they did really well to hold off Leipzig, because Leipzig could have easily won that game with the amount of chances they created. But Freiburg held strong and got the valuable point in the race for the European qualification place. Moving on swiftly to the next game in question, which goes in the favour of Hoffenheim and Hertha Berlin, which didn't turn out to be a positive result for Hoffenheim, who are looking nicely up at the European qualification place. There's a lot of teams battling it out for that. I think Hoffenheim are the only team, the lowest team with a chance of getting that high. But there wasn't a very good result here in the way of Hoffenheim, who played very poorly. In truth, they had most of the ball, created a lot of chances, but in the end just got done by some clever finishing and efficient chance taking from Hertha Berlin strikers. I mean, they had a great game in the way of attacking force for Hertha Berlin, and an own goal kicked off the scoring in the 58th minute for Hertha Berlin, with Kevin Apaguma scoring into the back of his own net for Hoffenheim, I suppose, really. But and then in came Ibisevic, who came in, the Hertha Berlin captain, came in and scored after 60 minutes, and then Matthias Cunha, who joined from Rasensport Leipzig, RB Leipzig for short, to score after the 74th minute, and the game was put to bed after that, really. I mean, I think Hertha Berlin have got a great side, and really, realistically, next season they should be challenging for the Europa League. But at the moment, they're not. At the moment, they were 11th with 31 points, and I mean, you think they've still got some games left. I mean, they've still got plenty of games. Well, not when I say plenty, they haven't really got plenty of games left, but they got some games left to try and recuperate a bit of space, and there's a chance. But Hoffenheim are in the best position out of the two to get that, and with 3-0 losses against Hertha Berlin, that's not the sort of thing you'd want. And Hertha Berlin's man of the match was Rune Almenning-Justin, or Run Justin, if you'd like. For 90 minutes, he made 2 saves, 1 diving save, 2 saves inside the box, 3 throws, 4 high claims, 26 accurate passes, and kept out the opposition well. Because I mean, Hoffenheim did make lots of chances, but the form of Justin allowed Hertha Berlin to take theirs with confidence, and they did. I mean, 13 shots, 12 chances created, 2 big chances, and 3 goals scored. That's pretty efficient strike force work, and it was a good game in all accounts, I suppose, but Hoffenheim in the end being dominated. But it's time to move on to our next game, which goes in the way of Dortmund and Schalke, which finished Dortmund 4, Schalke 0. Now, I'm going to give you a proper in-depth analysis of this game, because I was actually on my lovely sofa watching this particular one, and it was a game that Schalke just did not turn up. It was a game that I wouldn't be happy with if my name was David Wagner, Schalke manager. It was a very, very poor performance from them. They just were not at the races in this Riviera derby. I mean, Borussia Dortmund were good, but they certainly were helped by the poor defending and poor organisation of this Schalke team. I mean, they've got some good players in their Schalke, and so Dortmund. Dortmund, I think, have the better quality. But they certainly, if Schalke were better organised, they wouldn't have gone out and won this game like they did. I mean, Borussia Dortmund dominating in virtually every category, 60% possession, 11 total shots, 12 chances created, 2 big chances, 522 accurate passes, 85% pass success, 9 fouls and 4 corners. I mean, they've even dominated the fouls. But 29 minutes after a fantastic finish, Guerrero scored after 45 minutes. I think I'm just trying to recall which one was the mistake from the goalkeeper. Yeah, it was. Yeah, sorry. 45 minutes, Rafa Guerreiro scored, and then 48 minutes, Hazard scored. And this is the goal I want to talk about, because the goalkeeping situation at Schalke has been one of problems. I say it's a problematic area in the Schalke lineup. David Varga has been rotating between Alexander Nubel and Markus Schubert. Schubert got the nod in this first game today. And he made a catastrophic error where he just passed the ball straight out of his box. I mean, he was being pressurised by, I think it was Erling Haaland, and it was one that just came straight out to. It was Rafa Guerreiro who got the goal from this mistake, and he was just able to just pass it into the goal. Really, it was a poor clearance from Schubert, and he will be kicking himself because apparently, according to commentary, I'm not a huge watcher of the Bundesliga football. I watch a bit, but not too much. Well, obviously at the moment I am watching it because it's all we've got to live for, really. But Markus Schubert, that was his big chance, if you like, as according to a lot of pundits and things like that, and he let himself down badly, really. With a game like that, giving away that ball, and the goal from Thorgan Hazard after 48 minutes, again, was a poor shot from Thorgan Hazard and ended up just trickling its way into the goal. And then Rafa Guerreiro went and made it 4-0. I mean, the goalkeeping situation is not going to be helped by the fact that Schubert was unable to do the basics, really. I mean, Bundesliga football is back on now, and Schubert was almost. I think a lot of people were watching that game as well, so he will not be have a positive memory in many football fans' case here now. But Borussia Dortmund were 4 points away from Bayern Munich now in second place, close to catching them. I mean, they've been. They've got a reasonable chance of catching up with them and doing the impossible, as we would like to call it. They are playing them on the 26th, which is going to be a massive, massive game. And Schalke, 8th place, and 2 points away from that European qualification spot that so many teams are chasing them. With games like that, where they just were not at the races, Matija Nastasic and Jean-Claire Todibo both. I'm not going to single out Salif Sané because I think Salif Sané played well. I just don't think that he was on the. I don't think he was on the right team today. I think he would have. I just don't think he was helped by the fact that he had Nastasic and Jean-Claire Todibo. Todibo, he just kept taking extra touches when they were unneeded. Sometimes you just have to simplify your play when you're playing such a good side like Dortmund. You can't do too much, and he kept doing too much, and he kept trying to weave past players when there just wasn't that opportunity, and he kept constantly giving the ball away. And Jean-Claire Todibo was not at the races today, and neither was Nastasic. Nastasic just getting turned over every time somebody decided to come near him. I mean, 4 duels lost and only 1 won. He was just all over the shop today. And the striking options, they also deserve a bit of criticism helped on them. Weston McKennie, I suppose, in the centre midfield, he played well, but he was not helped by the fact that he was given nobody to pass to up front. Benito Rahman played the first half up until 46 minutes, and then Rabbi Matondo came on. Rahman offering nothing in behind. Same with Amin Harit, who played a tidy game, but there was no penetration into the back line of Schalke, of Borussia Dortmund, and he was just not helping his team. But that leaves Dortmund 4 points off Bayern Munich and Schalke 2 points off that European qualification spot, with a lot of teams chasing for that. So let's move straight on to the next game, which was I think this was the evening game between Eintracht Frankfurt and Borussia Mönchengladbach, which was a game that went to Mönchengladbach in their favour, and Mönchengladbach looking very strong in third place at the moment, 52 points from 26. Eintracht Frankfurt fighting around the relegation zone after such a good Europa League campaign last year. They're struggling. They are 5 points off. I'd say they're close to being out of it. I mean, they've got a game in hand. They've got a game in hand against Werder Bremen soon, but I think they should be okay, Frankfurt. But it was a poor game from their perspective. I mean, Rami Benzerbani having a great season in terms of for Mönchengladbach. I mean, he's really been very good with this season. His player of the match went. The player of the match award went to him with a 3-1 win against Eintracht Frankfurt. So Alessandro Pli scored after 1 minute, a very quick goal indeed, and then Nabil Thuram, Marcus Thuram, came in and scored after 7 minutes, and then Benzerbani scored a well tucked away penalty, I'm going to say, and after a bit of reckless play from Ndicka, who I don't know what he was really doing. In Bolo, you just need to stay goal side, and you need to just put a bit of pressure on, but you don't need to go crashing into the back of Brilliant Bolo, and that was what happened. And then Benzerbani put away that chance excellently, and then Silva got a consolation goal later on after coming on for I've lost my words now, for Gibraltar. But Benzerbani, man of the match, 8.4 rating, 78 minutes played, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 shots, 20 accurate passes, 74 pass success, 3 chances created, and it was a great game from Benzerbani in a whole. So let's move on to Sunday games. So we'll start with FC Köln and Mainz, which was a big clash in terms of both relegation. Well, just relegation really. Köln are safe and haven't really got much to play for, but Mainz 4 points off Dusseldorf in the relegation qualification place. And Mainz, I mean, they played really well, I suppose. Yeah, really well to beat a team that are far higher in the table than them. I mean, when you're in that sort of relegation dogfight, this is exactly the sort of performance you want your players to drum up as a manager. I mean, they weren't incredible, Mainz, but they played well enough to deserve a win. A draw, sorry, not a win, because they didn't win. But Uth, if you want me to put on my best German accent, or scored after 6 minutes from a penalty, which it was given away by Musa Niakate, with a bit of poor play there from him. But Mark Uth put that one away, and then Florian Kainz scored again just after the break, after 53 minutes. Taiwo Awoniyi, is he still on loan from Liverpool? I mean, I'm learning new things here, but I know he did play for Liverpool. Yeah, he is still at Liverpool. But he did score in this game. He scored after 61 minutes, and then Pierre Kunde, the centre defensive midfielder, scored a reasonable goal. Yeah, so it was an interesting game in terms of relegation, because obviously Mainz struggling a bit down the bottom of the table, but this point will help them. Every point counts in this sort of relegation battle. 13 chances created, 4 big chances, 331 accurate passes, 81% pass success, 15 fouls, 7 corners, 2 offsides for Mainz, compared to the 16 shots and 11 chances that Köln. It was a fairly even game, but one that Mainz had to fight for, and the man of the match went to Mark Uth, who scored a penalty earlier on in the game. He created the most chances in the match with 3, and also played 90 minutes with a goal, 3 total shots, 27 accurate passes, 75% of those were accurate. So good point for Mainz, good point for Köln, and a 2-2 draw there in that game at the Rennenergie Stadion in Köln. So we'll move on now to Union Berlin versus Bayern Munich, another game that I did happen to catch on my TV, where Union Berlin set their stall out to defend and try and catch Bayern Munich on the counter-attack. They couldn't. Let me give you that bit of advice. It was Bayern Munich who prevailed. The top spot and league leaders came in, and they scored after 40 minutes with a penalty from Robert Lewandowski after 40 minutes, when Goretzka got to the ball ahead of Neven Subotic, and in perfect, with the rivalry between Subotic being a former Borussia Dortmund player and Bayern Munich, he tried to hack that clear, and Goretzka ended up tumbling over and conceded a penalty. Lewandowski stepped up, of course, calmly, who's enjoying the best season of his career so far, actually, in terms of goals scored. With 26 so far, I think. He is on course, I'll say, to complete his best goal-scoring season. But that leaves Bayern 4 points clear, and Pavard scored after 80 minutes. But Bayern Munich are 4 points clear, with Union Berlin. I think they'll be okay, because they're 2 points above Frankfurt, and I think they'll be okay. They're 7 points clear at the relegation qualification place. So I think they'll be okay in terms of that. But Bayern Munich, another dominant performance, and I suppose all eyes will be looking to the 26th when the big game comes in with Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich, which I will certainly be tuning in for. Then there was a game on Monday night between Werder Bremen and Bayer Leverkusen. Leverkusen occupying 5th spot at the moment, 11 points clear of Wolfsburg below them, but they are 1 point away from reaching Leipzig. Werder Bremen in real trouble. 5 points just off the relegation qualification place alone, and 9 points off getting out of it altogether. I mean, they were battered here. They were battered against Bayer Leverkusen. Not a game I watched, but I can still give you an accurate match report, I hope. Kai Havertz opened the scoring after 28 minutes. Theodore Gebrselassie scored after 30 minutes, and then Havertz scored again, instant reply, with Timo Weiser scoring after 61 minutes, and then Kerem Demirbay scored after 78 minutes to give Bayern a 4-1 victory against relegation strugglers. They dominate the game. Again, another team that likes to play a high tempo football and like to keep the ball, like to play a nice game. 64% possession, 14 chances created, 4 big chances, 629 accurate passes, and 87% pass success. I mean, they played a great game in that. They were really good and deserved all 3 points. I mean, there's not really much more I can say. The stats really speak for themselves in this one. And Kai Havertz was man of the match, 8.8 rating, 85 minutes played, 2 goals, 5 total shots, 35 accurate passes, 79% pass success, 1 chance created, and 100% shot accuracy. So what more can you ask for from the midfielder who was playing in a bit of a false number 9 role and played an excellent game against Werder Bremen? So that was 4-1. So that is all of last week's Bundesliga fixtures. So let's move on and have a nice look at next week's fixtures, and I suppose today's fixtures. I mean, it's not today for me, but it is today for you. Today for me is Thursday, but today for you is Friday the 22nd of May, which is Hertha Berlin and Union Berlin, the Berlin derby, which I don't know whether I will be tuning into that, but I'd like to. I mean, I may not have commands of the television, but it's Hertha Berlin versus Union Berlin in the Berlin derby. I mean, we may have to go through a couple of next week's games as well. I mean, double podcast, I hear. may have to be the case, I'm afraid. We may have to do an L15weekly extra episode, I mean, because there are games on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I think we may have to cover those in due course. But Hertha Berlin and Union Berlin come to the floor today at 7:30, so catch that one. I'm not advertising a particular company, but I'm going to tell you where to watch it, and that's BT Sport or BT Sport 1 if you're in England, at the Olympus Stadium in Berlin. What a place. So it's an interesting game between Union Berlin and Hertha Berlin, who are only separated by 1 point in the table, and it's going to be a very, very interesting game from all accounts. I mean, Hertha Berlin have been prominent in these sorts of fixtures over the years. I mean, they've got a lot to. It's going to be a very big game, I think. Head to head, Hertha Berlin have won 1, 2 draws, 2 wins. Sorry, I did mean Union Berlin with the wins. Their last result came with a Union Berlin win where they really did the job on Hertha Berlin. But it's a very interesting game in the Berlin derby, so make sure you tune into that. We've got Mönchengladbach and Leverkusen, which is a big game in terms of table positions. It's 3rd versus 5th. If Leverkusen win, they will leapfrog Mönchengladbach and get into 3rd place. But it's going to be a difficult task to beat the Mönchengladbach side, managed by Marco Rose, who's put in such a great system at the moment. But it's going to be an interesting game from Bayer Leverkusen's by Leverkusen's standards. I mean, in a head-to-head situation, 9 wins for Mönchengladbach, 8 wins for Leverkusen, and 5 draws all told. I think it's going to be a struggle for Leverkusen to get a win here, but I think Leverkusen, with the form they've been in that last game against Werder Bremen, I think they've got a chance of winning. And let's move on to Freiburg versus Werder Bremen, which comes in. Werder Bremen not won in 6. It's a horrible stat, really, if you think about it. Freiburg have an average of 1.33 goals in their last 3 matches, and Werder Bremen have an average of 1. So I think that should tell you a bit about this game. And but Werder Bremen have not lost to Freiburg in their last 3 meetings. So that's a bit of hope for Werder Bremen that they may just clinch a victory here. But 7 points, 7th place to Freiburg with 2 points off the European qualification place. But again, so many teams are fighting out for that position. And Werder Bremen, it's a must-win game. I mean, they're far away from Freiburg in the table, but they've got to take points when they come, and they're offered to them. So it's going to be interesting to see if Werder Bremen can win some points against Freiburg. Paderborn and Hoffenheim is another game that's happening at Saturday at 2:30. Paderborn have not won a match in their last 7 attempts. And same for Hoffenheim, actually. So 2 teams on a horrid run of form. Paderborn in the worst situation, though, because they are rock bottom of the table with 17 points, and they're struggling. No, they are struggling. Paderborn have an average of 0.3 goals, with the same as Hoffenheim, so it's a very evenly matched on form-wise, but not on league position-wise. Paderborn haven't won in 7, and neither have Hoffenheim, but Paderborn haven't scored in their last 6 home matches, so there's the stat for you. It's going to be an interesting game. That one is at the Benteler Arena in Paderborn. But Paderborn, home advantage, but they haven't scored in 6 home matches. It's going to be interesting to see if they can get the victory. Game I'll be tuning in for, Wolfsburg, Dortmund. I like Dortmund. I don't know what it is. I mean, people will call me a bit basic for going for liking to watch a big team. But you can't help but admire Dortmund's system. Wolfsburg have scored 3 goals in their last 3 games, but Dortmund have scored double that in their last 3 games. I mean, I'm not really counting. I don't really know why I'm counting form before the coronavirus pandemic, because everything could have changed. Borussia Dortmund have won their previous 3 matches against Wolfsburg, but Borussia Dortmund haven't drawn in their last 12 matches. So that's the stat for you. Head-to-head goes 4 wins for Wolfsburg, 3 draws and 14 wins for Borussia Dortmund. Wolfsburg, they need to solidify themselves in that European qualification place, and Dortmund, they'd love to make up some ground on Bayern Munich, who play just a few hours later against Eintracht Frankfurt. Bayern Munich have won every single one of their last 7 matches, and they have an average of 1.67 goals in their last 3 matches, and Eintracht Frankfurt have an average of 0.33 goals. And they haven't drawn in the last 7 matches, and Frankfurt haven't either in their last 4. So it's Eintracht Frankfurt. It's a winnable game to get them pushing out, and they want to have nothing to play for in this sort of scenario, because they're not going to be able to play for European football, but they're also looking down at relegation and seeing, are they going to be okay? But they need a win here against a very, very strong Bayern side of 14 wins, 3 draws, and 2 wins for Eintracht Frankfurt against Bayern Munich. It's going to be an interesting game, but I'm fairly sure they did beat Bayern last time out. They did 5-1 it was. So maybe a bit of a bogey team going on there for Bayern. And Schalke against Augsburg. Schalke need to recover from that poor game against Borussia Dortmund. It's going to be an interesting one to see if they can. Schalke haven't lost to Augsburg in the last 7 meetings with 4 wins and 3 draws. Augsburg have not scored in 4 away matches, and Schalke haven't won a match in 7. So it's an interesting tie, but Schalke need to make up ground on Wolfsburg if they're going to have any shot of European football. And Augsburg, they need to get themselves away from relegation, 4 points clear of the relegation qualification place. So that'll be an interesting game at the Veltins Arena for Schalke. Mainz versus RB Leipzig is another game to look forward to. They haven't lost to Mainz in their RB Leipzig haven't lost to Mainz in their last 3 meetings, whereas Mainz have scored 5 goals in their last 3 matches, while Leipzig have scored 4. Mainz have have got the slightly worse form than Leipzig over the past 5 matches, but everything could have changed since then. But Leipzig, 4th place, they've got an interesting chance of getting up the table and hopefully staying away from European football, which Leverkusen will be breathing down their neck about. Mainz need to, again, like Augsburg, propel themselves away from relegation. There is a chance that they may slip into that relegation qualification play if they're not careful, which currently is occupied by Fortuna Düsseldorf, who play a bit later on against FC Köln, where FC Köln have scored in their last 8 home matches, so there's always a chance of a goal there. FC Köln have an average of 1.6 goals in their last 3 matches, and Fortuna Düsseldorf have an average of 0.67, and Fortuna Düsseldorf have not won a match in 4 attempts. So that brings you to the end of my Bundesliga talk, I suppose. Yes, it does actually. But that is the end of this week's L15 Weekly podcast episode. But make sure you stay tuned over the week, where I hope to bring you a little look at the games for midweek, I suppose. I think, hopefully, maybe if I can do that midweek or next Friday, we will have to see. But it'll be an interesting week to look over on the Bundesliga. Hopefully, we may see a return of another European league coming very soon. But if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, as my handy voiceover pre-record will tell you in a minute. But make sure you follow me on Twitter at L15weekly, at Instagram at L15weekly. You can tweet me at L15weekly. Talk about football. There's various stats and things going up on there ever so regularly. So make sure you go and follow over there. Make sure you like this video for another podcast, and make sure you subscribe with your notifications on to make sure that you don't never ever miss an L15 Weekly upload. So I'll see you next time, and goodbye.